Good morning. Are you going to be here with us for lunch, right?
Good morning, how are you today?
All right, is everybody present? No. Well, you know how Delta Company, sometimes we do everything backwards, and this is a good example of it. We're having the business meeting, the welcome after we've been here for 3 days. So I'm very excited about this. This is the 9th one, and I'm doing a fashion show for you. This is my 9-year-old shirt. That is a little bit tight. Back then, we took a standard issue shirt and then had them print on the back. And Dennis, I wanted you to see how poor the printing was back then. So we've made lots of improvements in everything that we've done. And so first off, like to acknowledge the original, for people that haven't heard my little speech, 10 years ago, 3 of us met in Tampa, Florida at the Hard Rock Cafe. Paul Uncle, who was my platoon sergeant, Tom Nowak, who was one of my squad leaders, and myself, and we had such a great time, the 3 of us, and we said, you know, what would be really cool is if we could expand this to other people. And so we started looking for people in the 70s, and the 70 people, some of them came in 69, some left in 71, and then we talked about the 69 people. Well, some of them came in 68. Well, pretty soon it was very obvious that Delta Company was Delta Company. Whether you came the first day in February of 68 or you were there in the last day in November 78 when they retired the colors. So that's how this reunion came about. I'm the coordinator, the website developer, and he's going to expand on the website later on in this presentation, is Dennis Ash. And you guys, I did a website years ago with Chamber of Commerce, and it was so expensive, it was so time consuming for somebody that doesn't know anything about websites. Having Dennis in Delta Company is like a dream. He does all this stuff for free. He pays all these charges that I don't understand that they have. And if you say to Dennis, hey, we got a new license plate. Well, I'm not done talking on the phone to him, and it's on the website. So it's like a dream. So thank you, Dennis, so much. The memorabilia, here goes Dennis again. Guy Howerton, who we all are remembering him during this reunion. Either he was sick or Martha was in the hospital. So they were back and forth, his lung collapsed. At some point, I had a reunion about a year ago for my officers candidate school. And if you all remember last year, we had some problems with the embroidering, and the OCS thing, we had some problems. So we told Guy that we were going to find a new person, that he should probably take a break and take care of his family instead of, during the OCS, he was so dedicated to Delta, or me, or the OCS, he was actually doing orders out of his hospital bed. And you know, oh man, there's, and we all know, you know, he had a stroke and he had a speech problem because of his stroke, and he was there at every one of our reunions. I can go on and on. I'm trying to get a picture from the florist that we had to pay $17 extra to get the picture, which they haven't sent me yet. So for y'all could see what we sent. I hope it's as beautiful as, you know, how their pictures look. Let me move on here. Thank you very much to Brian. Brian wasn't here, as you know, last year, and we had to depend on everybody sending in pictures. So the book this year that we have running around for 2018 is really kind of a piecemeal, not as professional as when Brian's here. And we got Brian back this year. No more weddings for this year, right? Right? And probably can't afford any more weddings, right? And then Pearl, what's her name? Our video girl. And we want to thank the Sands. Boy, I tell you, I got to take a minute here to talk about the Sands. Pearl and I used to come here quite often with the national bowling tournaments, and Sands was where you picked up your money. They had a side pot thing, and it's smart business. Pick up your money at the Sands, so you're in the casino, so you're going to spend some money. But anyway, it was pretty dumpy back then. And my little brother was here, and he's a little snobbish, and he didn't think that much of the Sands. But anyway, I'm impressed. This room here, what we've gotten, and I'd like to suggest, we talked about it, about the an extra tip for the for Todd yesterday in the help me here, in the coach, but also here there's a lady running around.
Mary.
Yeah, and you know, she's got a bad hip, and she gets 3 to 4 hours sleep because she's got to come back here and clean this up from the night before it's nice for breakfast. So she's, you know, coming in here at 5 or 6 in the morning to do that. So I would think, you know, that might fall in that category. At least I'm ready to give her an extra tip. So that's something to think of. We could maybe pass a hat or something. If you have the same feelings I do, throw something in the hat. Anybody got a hat? Yeah, okay. And I was going to say, Sam. Hell, Sam. Oh, yours got a hole in it. We don't want that. If somebody could start the hat around, I think that'd be a real cool gesture while I'm yapping up here. So, anywho, push the button. Bill Kane. Let's talk about Bill Kane. Bill Kane was going to be here. God, I was excited. Because Bill is in a Massachusetts soldier's home, and I've never gotten out of him, and I've asked a number of times why he's in a soldier home, what happened, etc. All I know is every year for the last 3 years, Bill has sent us $1,500. And the first year we did Bill Kane Taco Bar. The second year we did a Bill Kane jacket, like we gave Michael, who had to leave early. And this year, Bill Kane paid for those plaques that we have. And what we did to, and I'm sorry, this is the best picture I got of it. This is Bill Kane, and this outside the soldier's home yesterday. And there's the plaque. And then what we had this year, because he was coming to the reunion, the board of directors picked out this real cool crystal. You can't see it in this picture worth a darn, but it's like a teardrop, fairly big, and it's got our logo on the top, and then thank you, Bill Kane, for your financial support for Delta Company. And so this is a bill, and We sent him the banner, about 3 years ago, and he asked me not to send him any more banners because he just has a small room. And he said, you know, the room is not big enough for that banner you sent me because it's like twice the size of this one. So we said, okay, we won't send you any more banners. But we send him the annual book every year. Special recognition. Here's the years that we've had a reunion so far, and here are the people alphabetical that have had perfect attendance. The Bakers, the Boatwrights, the Bushes, the DeSasco, someday you're going to get an easier name. Krantz, why is there a comma? I don't know how to type. Salapini, Stovall, Sundley, and their better halves. And if it wasn't for the better halves, we wouldn't have these attendance records, I know. Because, and we greatly appreciate it. And here's 8 out of 9, is Dennis Ash and Mr. Burnett and Mr. Uncle and their better halves. So we really appreciate the dedication that we have in these special people. We've got a special guest today. His name is Butch Sundley, and he can't hear me, so it's kind of cool. I can say anything I want about him. And he'll just smile at me and say, and he's given a donation to this lady here. Oh, he's cool. Okay, and why Sundley, he's the most decorated individual in Delta Company that we found to date. Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 with V device. The Purple Heart, 2 Purple Hearts, kind of like wherever Sam is. And of course the CIV. And I'm sure that our next individual could stand up and speak for quite a while about Butch because he had the honor of serving with Butch. Our senior member, Colonel Larry Stovall, OCS Hall of Fame member. And then we've got 2 E7s, Doug Burnett and Jerry Wayman. And, that's a lot of years when you start thinking, and I probably can toot my horn. Oh my God, thank you, girl. Okay, man, more girls like that should come up here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, God, just keep coming, guys. My coffee cup is holding it all up. When you think of it, Larry, how many years? Where'd you go?
31.
31 years involved in the military. Doug?
Not that many.
Not that many. Jerry?
21.
21. Okay, I think I hold the record of 39. That was just like Larry. You know, I was sitting in retirement waiting for age 60 when they would send me money, you know, and next thing I get this email, would you consider going on active duty? And my story is I was in Cotter, Arkansas, and I was fly fishing, and what could I say? Gee, I'm fly fishing, I can't come serve my country. So anyway, we'll move on. Oh, okay. For you new guys, here's what the deal is we're going to do the round robin. Part of this is for us here, and part of us is for the history of Delta Company. We've done this since 2011, and next year during our 10th reunion, we're going to play that, but we might shorten up one of the presentations. I think Mr. Glasscock talked, and maybe he knew he wasn't going to be able to tell these stories ever again, and so he has helped me. He's not here, so he can't help me.
A 30-minute presentation.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm trying to think what he has now, his illness. Alzheimer's, has Alzheimer's, so he can't do that anymore. And she wanted to come last year, but something happened, they couldn't come. Maybe next year. But anyway, so what we do is a round robin. It's a real short thing. You come up here, the camera's running, you introduce yourself, you tell a little bit about what you did before Vietnam. You know, if you just jumped out of high school or you just jumped out of college or whatever. Tell what you did in Vietnam, what position you had in Vietnam, maybe what platoon you were in Delta Company. Maybe you did something else during Vietnam or after Vietnam. You were assigned Fort Hood and you were a professional garbage collector or something like that. And then what you did in your civilian life to make a living. Because all of us here are retired or semi-retired, and that's, to me, interesting. So I'll start with myself, and I'll try and be short. It's hard for me. I love the way Glasscock filled it up for a half an hour. But anyway, before Vietnam, before I enlisted in the service, I was a draftsman. I went through a 2-year apprenticeship program, never got a college degree, you know, 4-year degree. Went in the service, learned I enlisted as a draftsman because I was going to get more money because they're going to give me more training. And then I saw the guy off on the side with the butter bar, and that guy didn't do anything. And immediately I thought, that's the job I want. You know, the guy that sits off on the side and doesn't do anything. So my sergeant was a hardcore blankety-blank individual, and when I explained to him what I wanted to do, he said, "You don't want to be one of those lazy men." And I said, yeah, that's exactly what I want, you know. And so anyway, he got me into this testing program, and I got into engineering officers candidate school. And I had to go through AIT at Fort Leonard Wood. I went through Fort Leonard Wood as a combat engineer, and I was waiting for my class date, and they canceled it. They canceled the class. So they gave me a choice: go to Vietnam as a laborer, combat engineer, or go to infantry OCS. And I said, well, I'll do that, and I'll go airborne, I'll go ranger, I'll go special forces, and the war will be over. So off I went, and well, I was blind, so they wouldn't let me go special forces. But anyway, went to officers candidate school. I was tutored the whole time by a fantastic individual that's gone now. But anyway, where'd I go? Delta Company. Went to Delta Company, went to Fort Rucker, Alabama as an infantry platoon leader. Scared the hell out of newborn aviators as they tried to land. We'd throw out artillery simulators and all that crap and watch them try and crash and recover and all that. But anyway, stayed because my first wife spent everything I sent home. I stayed in the Army for another year at Fort Huachuca. Boy, this is going to be hard in a couple of years. Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and then got out of the service, went to drafting, volunteered for any job that included paper, because most engineers aren't able to keep paper. Did grants and all that kind of stuff. Retired from the city of Tucson after 29 years, and 39 years with the military. And that's the longest presentation we're going to allow. So, so start with your tape.
That's a personal choice.
Welcome, everybody. I'm sorry I missed last year. I looked at the book. Whoever took the pictures last year did a fabulous job. He almost got me out of my job for this year. Thanks to Lynn for understanding. We had a family commitment last year. We couldn't make it, so we did miss all of you, and we feeling pretty bad we couldn't make last year. My name is Brian Nepper, my wife Linda. We got married in '69 after I got back from Vietnam. Had 3 lovely daughters, and they're all married to great son-in-laws. They're all doing very well, which is a blessing. We have 7 grandkids. During the tour in Vietnam, I had the privilege of carrying the radio for Larry Stovall. And one of the first things he said to me when he said, "Are you my RTO?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "If you think I'm doing something stupid, tell me." Because we had already been there 6 months and he hadn't been there yet, so he wasn't sure what he was up against. You know, so. But just a great lieutenant that I had the opportunity to serve with, and loved every minute of it. Just a couple of footnotes. We're going to do a group picture. I didn't realize it was going to turn into such an ordeal today, but I ended up going outside this morning without a jacket on, and I walked the perimeter. There's so much construction out there, we really can't, get a good picture out there. So one suggestion was we could walk down by the river, and I said, no, that's not going to work. We're not going to walk down by the river. So we're going to take a shot. I had to get a clearance from security to take a picture downstairs in the casino. So at the very bottom of the stairs from the mezzanine here, if you hang a right, there's a row of slot machines that they use for tournaments. And today is not a tournament day, so there shouldn't be anybody playing those machines. And it's enough room for us to gather as a group, both collectively as husband and wives, and also just get a picture of the guys. The other thing, so we'll go down there. I'm not sure what time we'll break for that, but maybe Lynn can announce it when he's ready. And then because they have the food blocked off here with this nice wall, it makes a very nice backdrop. So we'd be able to move these tables a little bit forward and get a nice group shot of everybody here, so it should work out well. When I got back from Vietnam, Linda's dad was a barber for like 55 years, and one of my guys that I went to high school with, his brother was from Cleveland, Ohio, and we were in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And basically he said, American Airlines is hiring in Cleveland, what's Brian doing? So my father-in-law said, well, I don't think he's doing too much. I think he was going to computer school, and he wasn't liking it at all, because I'm pretty much a people person and wanted to do something a little bit different. So I ended up going out to Cleveland for an interview for American Airlines, and I ended up getting the job. So we ended up packing like an 8-foot trailer and put a hitch on the back of the car, and we drove to Cleveland. And I walked around for 2 weeks with Kleenexes, because she was missing home real bad. So we finally got her integrated into Cleveland, and if you ask her today if it was a good move to go to Cleveland, she'll tell you it was the best move ever. So I spent 25 years with American Airlines, all the way from loading mail bags and freight on the tarmac, bringing planes in with people on board, and putting tow motors together and all kinds of stuff. So, then I moved to reservations, and I went to reservation sales, so we were taking incoming calls. And if you worked the late shift in reservations, you would get calls from a bunch of drunk people. They'd be in bars, and they say, what's the boat schedule from Alameda, California to San Francisco, or something like that. You get some crazy calls. So that was fun. So then I ended up in sales for American Airlines in Cleveland. Managed to stay there all those years, 25, 30 years. I was able to stay in Cleveland. I went through a couple layoffs, ended up with a job with Japan Airlines for 6 years. Great airline. Got to fly to Pacific Rim and see some things that you would never get to see. And so that was kind of a highlight of my career working for Japan Airlines. They were closing the office with Japan Airlines, so I ended up going back to American Airlines, which was kind of cool. But I had to re-interview for my job. And I had to go to Dallas. And they had a 25-minute written section that you were a sales manager in a specific town in the country, and you had to give them your marketing strategy for that city. Then from there, we went on a one-on-one interview with the regional manager. And then from there, we went into a room with all the managers on one side and all the candidates on this side, and they started firing questions at you. So at the time, I was working for Japan Airlines, and I notified my regional manager for Japan Airlines in Chicago, and I said, I'm interviewing for American Airlines. I want to stay in Cleveland. It's going to cost me $20,000 to move to Chicago with my own money. So, excuse me, everything worked out, and I ended up landing the job in Cleveland. So that's our home, and that's where we stay, and we love it there, and that's it. That's all I got. Thank you.
My name is Lonnie White, and the last time I spoke here, I talked a lot about, what I did in Vietnam and how I got there, but I forgot to say where I went after that point. So after I left Vietnam, I went back to Alaska where I was drafted, and my wife and I went back to the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. And I went into studies, biology, and I had a background in agriculture when I was in New England. And so I wasn't sure where I was going to land, but Alaska Pipeline was being built. Preparations were being made for the pipeline. It was when we were students. And when I graduated from the University of Alaska with a degree, was in biological sciences, and the thing I wanted to do was to work in conservation somewheres. And I ended up finding a job that was perfect for me. It was in Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and I had to work on restoring salmon. And so I spent 23 years in Alaska, mostly in Kodiak, working on salmon restoration and enhancement, and it was a perfect job for me because a lot of things involved hatcheries. There's a lot of similarities between hatcheries and what goes on in agriculture, because you have to, feed fish, you have to take care of them, you have to have the right places for them. Well, we ended up restoring salmon runs in Alaska to the point where there were millions of fish coming back to our facilities and going up fish ladders that we built, and it was a great thing. That's all still ongoing. But after 23 years in the department, I was promoted on to the point where everybody else was in the field having all the fun now, and I was shuffling paperwork, and I decided to retire from that because they had an early retirement system. And so I stopped doing that, and my wife and I on the side had started a small nursery business, and what we decided to do is to kick it up a notch, and that's what I've done since then. So we've been almost 40 years now. We've been running a nursery greenhouse business called Strawberry Fields, and that's what we do is we grow plants for women mostly, and they just love my greenhouse business. They just are so happy that we're still there. My wife and I are thinking about retiring on that, but it's kind of hard to, we're the only one there on the island that does that grows everything there. And so it's kind of hard to let go. But my wife would like me to let go, but she's not sure who's going to prevail in the midst of this thing. She's tired of it. Her folks are in their 90s up there. And we have, actually there's 4 generations of us in Alaska right now. We have 9 grandchildren and had 3 daughters. So anyways, life has been good for us, and I appreciated that when I went back to school after being in the Army, I only had to serve 19 months. I came back with 19 months, and I didn't have to go back to any more bases and play Army. We had done enough of that in Vietnam. I didn't want to do that. Got out, and I had the GI Bill behind me, which was a real blessing to have, something come in to help you for the groceries and the rent and all that. It was a good thing. So God bless America. Thank you very much for all your service too.
Okay, gang, Sam Maggio here. most of you know me. Before I got drafted, I was going to junior college. I was drag racing every Sunday, going out with a bunch of girls. I thought that was, you know, the best I could do in life. I didn't really think you could do better. You know, in June of '67, I got drafted, and we all went down to Fort Leonard Wood. And I told them, you know, that I would make a really good beer taster for Germany. But they said, we got enough, you know. So they sent me to Fort Polk, Tigerland, and boy, was that a hellhole. I mean, not only the heat, but we were down there like in August to, you know, end of November, beginning of November. It was miserable. So I get 20 days maybe home, and then we go right to Vietnam. I got would have been the 1st to the 6th replacement on December 1st. I still got orders. Butch and I are on the same page. He got there the same day. So I think we got there the earliest in '67. So we had, you know, we were by July, and it wasn't that bad. So, you know, we didn't have a whole lot of stuff going on until the Tet Offensive in February 8th. And then, you know, everything started to pick up. You know, it was really, really miserable. I got wounded twice. Brian and I, and Butch, we shared a lot of foxholes, and you know, we did our thing. When I got wounded, I went to Japan for you know, probably a week, 10 days or something, and then I went to Fort Riley, Kansas hospital there. I was there 5 months. So you know, I did the rest of my time in the Army at Fort Carson, Colorado. You know, it's by Colorado Springs, and everybody downtown hated you, you know, because of the war sentiment at the time. But I finally get out, and I go back to school on the VA disability, and they paid for everything and paid your tuition and everything, and it was nice. I got a degree out of IIT, 4-year, but unfortunately I picked photo at the time, which was like really nice if you want to do darkroom stuff, but there was no money in it. I got out of school in '74 during the oil embargo, and it was really miserable. You couldn't get a job anywhere, so I ended up taking some really crappy job, learned how to silk screen, and then I did silk screening at home, and you know, I did that, you know, probably till we got married. 78, me and Mary, she had to go upstairs. The princess summoned her. So after a little while, I got about a year and a half electronics. I got a job with Xerox, and worked for them for 10 years, and they fired me illegally, and I took them to court, and I won. And then I got a job with Minolta, and I worked for them for 6 years, and they fired me illegally. And I went to federal court with them, and I got a whole bunch more money. So, and anyway, I'm falling apart now, as you can see. I used to be nice, tall, and straight, and everything. My backbone's fused, and I'm only running about half on my heart right now, you know, pumping. So, you know, I'm hoping, you know, next year I won't be on a walker, you know, and wherever we go, you know, I'll surely try to be there, you know, because I did. This is my 7th one, and I enjoy all you people, you know, and you know, it's like we're dear friends. I mean, you know, what we did together was not like working at an office or being on a bowling league. You know, what we did together was deadly force every day. And, you know, I can remember 2 times we laughed, maybe. You know, we did have a couple of good times, you know. But, you know, I love all you people. You know, you're all dear to me, and I hope to, you know, to hug everybody tonight, you know, when we leave. And I did want to warn you, the pills you take from the VA, you got to watch them, you know, because I've been taking this stuff to go to sleep, you know, and it wears off after a while. You same dosage, so you start waking up hallucinating, you know, and sometimes I wake up, I think I'm Jimmy Durante, you know. You know, you sitting alone in your room. It gets worse, you know. Sometimes I think I'm Ray Charles, you know. The bills are all due, and the baby needs you. You know, and then every other night I'm Ralph Cramden. One of these days, Alice. You know, and the worst was when I was.
He was a comedian?
I woke up Ethel Merman one time. Things are swell, things are great. No, gonna have the whole world on a plate. No, so after a while they sent me to a VA counselor. You know, and it's a impersonation withdrawal. And, you know, I talked to him for a long time, and he says that he had it bad himself. That's how he got into the routine. He used to, you know, dress up in a sequin gown like Edie Gourmet and sing, and then he'd get a big puffy skirt, and he'd go, "I feel pretty, I'm so pretty." You know, so be careful what the VA did here. Because you could have psychotic episodes too. You know, and as for next year, I don't know where we're going to meet, but I'm not going to drive, you know, because I like to drive better. I can bring more junk. You know, when I'm on that plane, I got to carry everything to the gates, and that's getting to be a drag, you know. So next year we're gonna really lighten up if we got to fly. So anyway, I hope all of you are enjoying this, and you new guys, you know, come back next year, you know, because it took us 20 years. You know, we haven't seen Lauren in 50 years, you know, and he came last year with his wife, and he fills in all of the blanks for me, the stuff I forgot or didn't see. And we have 7 of us here from '68, you know, and like I told Ollie, I was the first one that responded. I've been waiting for that ad in the VVA magazine for years and years. I would post in there once in a while, "Hey, isn't it time we had a D company reunion?" Because I went to C companies and theirs is like, you know, ho-hum boring. And, you know, they get 4 guys last year. I mean, you know, give me a break, man. You know. So wherever we're going to be next year, you know, I'll try to be there. And of course, we bring the princess. And I want to thank all of you for the way you know, treat the princess. You know, she means a lot to me. She's 36 now. And we could tell that she had a problem when she was 2 years old. You know, she never developed, you know, like other kids, but she's got more friends around, you know, town than I do, so she does okay. All right, gang, that's all I got, and slow salute for Guy Howardson. Wow, that should have been last.
Hey, my wife. Is there? Okay.
I'm the spokesperson for Larry. We're Larry and Carol Boat-Ryan. We've had 50 years this year of marriage. We have 1 son Neil, and he was here. They won a lot of money last night, so that's why they're not here today. They were really happy.
Oh, good.
Larry first started out at Chrysler in Belvedere. He was a painter. He had gone to school in Carbondale, and then he started out in Belvedere. And then from there, of course, he got drafted, Vietnam, from February of '68 to October of '68. He was part of the Tet Offensive. And what else do we want to say? Mine's going to be short because he knows more than I do. We have 3 grandchildren. And, oh, I wanted to say one thing. After he got out of Vietnam, he went to school for 3 years.
4 years.
4 years. And he worked for Rockwell International as an accountant for Rockwell International. And that's when Rockwell was in Centralia. So he worked there for 28 years.
Yeah.
And then it was, the automotive sold out, and then he worked for another company called Cambridge. And then he decided Cambridge didn't have the opportunities or the, what do I want to say? Like hospitalization, things like that. I'm having to think about it. And so anyway, then he got into his own companies. He had a mortgage company, a title company, and land development company. And then we got out of all of that in 2005 when he had his stroke. We have 3 grandchildren, and they are 26, 16, and 10. So Neil says, I'm going to have to work the rest of my life to get them all through school. And since he's had his stroke, we do a lot of traveling. We went to Australia where he did his R&R, and oh, it changed a lot, didn't it?
Yeah.
And we're getting ready in 2020 to go to the Panama Canal, and we're going through the new locks. We've been through the old, we're going through the new. And he went to Sturgis this year. Now that is really something.
Oh,
During
boy.
the motorcycle rally, oh my.
I'll tell you that later.
Well, we got him a little scooter because he couldn't walk very far, and this was in Deadwood. He loved the Budweiser girls there. Every time I turned around, there was one sitting on his lap. So I was glad when we got out of Deadwood. And we only spent 1 day in Sturgis. That was enough. And we went to Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse, and the Custard's Park. And I've never seen such a windy road through Custard's Park. And anyway, that's all we've done this year. It's
Okay.
enough.
See ya.
My military name is Leonard Sunley, and my civilian name is Butch Sunley. I was born in Illinois, and I froze all my young life. And then Uncle Sam gave me a job, and I stayed warm for 2 years. And yesterday I found out from Sam that somehow I was in A Company in Vietnam, and I don't remember that, but I remember when I lived in Vietnam, I was in Cameron Bay, and they had me unloading airplanes. And this guy walked by, and I go, "Hey, you got a minute?" And he was an officer. And I said, "I'm tired of unloading airplanes." And he said, "Well, come with me." So he gave me a ticket. And he said, "Go over there at the airport and catch a flight to Chulai. The airport twice this size, and there's a guy in there. I go, this airport? Yeah. I need to go to Chulai. So we'll hang around. We'll get one going that way, we'll put you on it. So in Chulai, after all my time in the Army, they put me on KP. One day this guy's walking by and I go, hey, you got a minute? I was an officer, what do you want? I'm tired of doing KP. He said, well, come with me. And I guess I got in A company. Because according to the Times, D hadn't got there yet. So I had no idea. But after a while I realized that I should have stayed on KP. And I was glad to get out of Vietnam. I went back to Illinois and froze for a while. And then 40 years ago, I moved to Texas and I met Martha. And with the help of a lot of friends, I ended up working for Monsanto for 23 and a half years. And then at 60, I told Martha, I've always wanted to drive a semi. So I quit Monsanto and drove a semi for 10 years, and then my health got me. So I've been, I guess, loafing for 10 years.
I'm Larry Stovall, and I'm one of the few lifers in this room. And I owe my success in the military, the majority of it, to a number of the people who have already spoken to you this morning. When I got to Vietnam, I was 3rd Platoon leader in Delta Company. And me and everybody else was trying to figure out what Butch Sunley's position was. He was a hard 5. He was an NCO, he was a sergeant, and the first day I talked to Butch a little, I said, well, what do you do? Because I had squads that didn't have sergeants and didn't have a platoon leader. And he said, I don't do any of that stuff. And I said, okay. And so I just kind of watched for a while to figure out what he did. And I found out pretty soon he did a lot. There were things like, we were running 3 ambushes, and if you remember, a platoon had 2 guns and 2 radios. Not mine. I had 3 guns and 3 radios, thanks to Butch. And Larry Boatwright, who worked in supply. And there were some other units that were short M60 machine guns and radios, but we never were. Another benefit that came for months, the majority of the stories I heard were about Sam Maggio, and Sam was hit the 2nd time and gone before I ever got there. And so one of the huge benefits of this reunion when it started, well, I got to meet Sam for the first time. I already knew his life history and all of his exploits in Vietnam. Brian was the first one that got up here, and I didn't remember saying that, but I'm sure it's true. But the truth is, I learned real quick, if there was a call coming in that I didn't want to mess with, I just let Brian take it. And he did that a number of times, and I didn't have to be on that radio because he knew as much or more about what was going on than me. There's going to be a young soldier that's here for the 2nd time this year that I'm so glad he is, but Ted Smith had already been transferred over from C Company, and he was a squad leader. And he was another one of my senior advisors for the entire time that he was there. I'm okay, and Lonnie. Lonnie was the stabilizing force in the organization because with his size and the way he handled an M60, we were secure.
Surgical. Surgical.
Yeah, absolutely. So my time in the Army was basic training at Fort Campbell, AIT at Fort Knox, and I was an 11 Delta, which was recon, scouts. They called it Armored Intelligence Specialist. But then I lost all that when I went to OCS, because like Lynn, I went to infantry OCS. I stayed in another year or two after Vietnam, and I had a real hard job. I was stationed down in Mississippi. I was an advisor to a couple of Mississippi National Guard units. And, you know, the Guard and Reserve were kind of a joke in the 60s. It was a place to hide out from the draft. So I got off active duty after that and went back to school and got my degree and went to work for Procter & Gamble. And I stayed with them. It was a pretty good job. I ended up staying there 36 years. So the reason I'm a lifer was that after about 7 years, I got in the reserve, and I stayed in that until retirement. So as I look around the room, the other person that in each one of these for 9 years now that I've not talked about enough is the real reason for any success I had, and that's my bride. And in 2016, we celebrated our 50th anniversary. I don't remember where we were, DC, with this group right here. And I said that night, our 4 children and our eight grandchildren weren't real happy about us not being at home for this surprise party they had planned. But we sent them pictures of the dinner and our 50th anniversary that we celebrated with 30 of my brothers. And I said that night, we couldn't have been anywhere any more special than with you that night. So we got married. Patty and I got married when I got out of OCS. Here was the deal. She came down for graduation, and I said, look, some lieutenants get an assignment that lasts a year. And if I get one that lasts a year, we'll go ahead and get married. But a lot of them, it's 4 to 6 months, and then you go to Vietnam, and we shouldn't. And so I got assigned to the infantry school as an instructor, and I knew that was for a year. So we had like 8 days or something from when I graduated, and we drove to Nashville. We were both from Nashville, and surprised her mom by saying, hey, we want to get married this week, and she wanted to have a church wedding, so they put that together kind of fast, and that started it. So we spent our first year at Fort Benning, and then I left to go to Panama, and I came back home and got an extension on my port call to Vietnam for our first son to be born. So when I got home to Vietnam, I had a 1-year-old, and then from there we had a daughter, another boy, and then the empty nest syndrome baby came along that many of you know, Natalie, and so we're hoping to get her back sometime too. After she made her brief appearance in Nashville, Lynn dubbed her the sweetheart of Company D, and she's kind of proud of that title. So we'll get her back, you know, one of these times. So that's my story once again. Lee?
Good morning. My name is Leandro Lee Navarro. I'm originally from South Texas. I didn't do much there, just finished high school, but I was just working in the fields at that time, so there was really no much work at all there. So I got drafted in '68, went to Vietnam, stayed there 68, 69, which I got wounded in May of 14. They sent me back. I came through Japan, San Antonio. They ended up in Fort Hood. And that's when I met my wife. When I got married, she was living in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and I had a sister there. So I was making excuses that I was going to go see my sister, which I was at the beginning, you know, but after that, you know, I just said, well, I'm going to go visit my sister in River. But I just met my future wife, you know. So after I got out of the service, or before I got out, I was just working in the supply room because I had been wounded, so I couldn't do anything. So they asked me if I wanted to take some kind of classes there, you know, before I got out. So I said, well, what do you got? And one of them was the Postal Service. So I took that one, and probably in about 6 months or so, they called me from the Postal Service, and I worked there for 31 years before I retired in '02. And I had married my wife back in 71. You know, so had been married for about 23 years, and I lost her back in 93. And I got one daughter, which I still live with. She never got married, so apparently I got no grandkids, so I gave my dreams up already about having grandkids. You know, so I don't think she's going to be married or anything. She's 51 years old. You know, and before I retired from the Postal Service, I started looking for something else to do. Before I didn't want to just quit and stay home. So I found a job as a security guard at the Texas Ranger ballpark. So I've been there ever since 2001. Well, I quit for about a year and a half. I said, well, I had enough, but no, I had to go back. I couldn't stay home, so I just went back in August. So that's all I've been doing. Well, I went to started in Fort Bliss. From there, they sent me to Fort Lewis, Washington. Then from there is where I went to Vietnam. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. My name is Jim Lampy. I was born on a farm in Illinois, grew up in Illinois. After high school, I went to Chicago for a year, went to trade school up there. Thought I wanted to be a mechanic, but after I did that for a short while, I got tired of skinned fingers, burnt arms, and everything else. So I went to work in St. Louis building Ford Mercuries, and I did that until I got drafted. And went to Vietnam, came back from there. And I went back to the Ford plant once I was broke, and I got to get my job back. So went into personnel and told them who I was, what I did. They said, well, we got a spot for you in the body shop. And the body shop at that time, it was a hellhole of a place, you know. So I said, well, you know, I got a little seniority. How about if you put me somewhere else? And they said, well, you can go back to the Army and not lose rank, or you can go to the body shop. I went to the body shop. I walked back down there and I looked at those same guys doing that same thing as they were doing before I left. And I guess before I left, I didn't think much about that, but when I came back, I changed a little bit. And I thought, man, I can't do this for 27 more years to get out of here. So about 15 miles from me was a Corps of Engineer Lake. So I stopped there one day and put my name in. Probably about 6 months later, they called me, asked me if I still had a need to be over there. And by that time, I was starting to dread Sunday afternoons, thinking of Monday mornings. So I said, I'm gone. So I switched over to the lake for a seasonal job, and I met Donna over there. Well, not at the lake, but I met her about that same time, I guess. And the rest is history with her. We got 2 children, 5 grandchildren, and I worked at the lake for about 42 years, retired from there, and here I am. I found you guys, so happy to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Morning, everybody. My name is Jerry DeSotko. My wife, Carolyn. I was born and raised on a small farm in north central Nebraska. Shortly after high school, I was drafted into the Army in somewhere in October of '68. I did my basic training in Fort Lewis, Washington. And the only thing I remember about that is it rained every day except for one. I don't have a lot of good things to say about Seattle, Washington. I went to Vietnam and I was trained in artillery. My MOS was 13 Alpha 10, and when I got to Vietnam, I didn't do what I was trained to do. When I got there, I was selected what they call field forces, and I was fortunate to be with Delta Company. So I served with Delta Company first as an RTO for the forward observer, but you know, eventually somehow I got the job, a lieutenant's job, but I was a private first class. But they needed to at least be an NCO to do that, so they made me an acting corporal. But I still got PFC pay. You understand this? After I got back from Vietnam, I worked a little bit and that's where I met my wife. I worked in it was a gamble store where they sell everything, and I worked in the hardware department. And I had a special talent that I think my wife really liked, because down there in the summertime, flies would come in and they would land on his table, and I could, and I got pretty good at that. And Carolyn come down one time, and I think I sold her a radio. We still have that radio. But I could do this number, boom, and I think that really impressed her. So we ended up getting married. But I think it was meant to be. After we were together a little while, we found out what day her birthday was. It was May 24th, 1951. Well, mine was May 24th, 1949. So I said, well, why don't we just get married on May 24th? That way I don't have to remember all this. So we got married on May 24th. So it's a great way to, I only have to buy one thing. So then I moved to Montana, where I like to do mechanical things, so I worked on sewing machines. And if you know anything about them, you have to be kind of mechanical to get one of them things to run it. So long story short, I ended up in that business, sewing and vacuum cleaners, and that's how I made my living for almost 45 years. I kind of retired, say, last year. My son has kind of taken over the business. He also likes to do that mechanical stuff. And so I just go to work on Saturdays, and I don't even work all day. I go in at 9 o'clock, and I close the store at 2 o'clock. And if something comes in, I don't do it. But then I also don't get paid. I worked for 6 days a week for almost 45 years, and never did have like a whole weekend off. So Sundays was my day off. So you'd go to church, take a nap, and you just didn't have time to do anything at home. So now I'm doing all those things and loving it. We have 6 children. 3 of my boys served in the military. At one time we had all 3 in the Middle East. 1 in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, and 1 in Kuwait. Not Kuwait. One of the Middle Eastern countries. So that was hard on me. And when I made it through that, they're all out now. We're all doing good. I have 4 grandchildren. We have 4 grandchildren, and now that's my job. I'm at their beck and call. And so whatever Addie wants, Addie gets. And I think I made my kids kind of mad because they never got stuff that they want. So anyway, that's my story.
That's my story.
I'm not good at this public speaking, but Gary Salpede, my wife Sharon, and I was drafted into the Army 3 times. I've been in college and dropped out a semester. And there's this lovely woman in Fairfax, Virginia that ran the draft board, Beulah V. Anderson. She thought she had me, but I'd gone back into school, so I got a deferment and ducked. Then I was out and didn't sign up for the next semester, but I was doing a really important job in driving a delivery truck for a printing company, and got the guy to write me one of those essential employee things. I thought I had it. Then we got married in October. But Beulah, did I mention Beulah? She showed up again in December of '68, and I went in January of '69. Ended up with Delta, and the rest of it. Made it to the field and left. Entered the country about the 12th of June, made it to the field probably the end of June. Ended up in the CP on August the 20th with the insertion of Dale College, and then stayed there until I exited in early June. So Worked with a lot of guys. Jerry DeSanco, who was just here, taught me how to, the correct way to shoot artillery. And a lot of you folks don't know it, but we all owe him a debt of gratitude because he saved a lot of skin. So we had some other FOs from corresponding companies that weren't real good that targeted erroneously occasionally. And Jerry's instruction saved that. But, you know, made it through it, got out, couldn't get a job, took a temporary job in commercial construction to hold me over till I could get a real job, sort of like Jim Lampy was talking about. But when I got the call, I'd sort of already got mired in this construction business and stayed in it. And, schools, colleges, government buildings, and you know, we live right, by the way, we live right outside of DC, so you know, we hear all that mumbling off Capitol Hill all the time. But Corps of Engineers work and everything, and I kind of evolved into being a commercial estimator, and it's somewhat thin occupation, so there's a lot of demand. And I've just kind of stayed in it, and I still work some part-time for a friend of mine that has a consulting company, so no real complaints. We have one daughter, and we're still in the same place, and I guess that's where I'm going to stay till I go out feet first. So. Anyway, thank you.
Get a railing up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Hi, my name is Chuck Krantz from Minnesota, and I quit high school at 17. There was nothing to do at home, so I went to work in a steel warehouse, and I worked there for almost 2.5 years. I met my wife, Pat. I got wonderful papers from Uncle Sam the day we got married, February 15, 1969. And a month later, I went in the service, had my basic training at Fort Campbell, AIT, Tigerland, Fort Polk, and I got home from there and on leave before going to Nam. We had a son, and I went to Vietnam. He was 1 month old. And I made it for about, what, 7, 8 months. I walked point most of it, and got wounded. I got home in August, I think. Yeah, in August. And then they put me up at Fort Lewis for 9 months, and got out of the service. I went back to work in the warehouse where I started, and 45 years later, I retired. So, we have 2 kids, a son and a daughter, 4 grandkids, and we just had our 5th great grandkid. We celebrate every day.
Yeah, all right.
I'm Dennis the Menace. Actually. In May of 1967, Brenda and I graduated from North Clayton High School in College Park, Georgia. And then in December of that same year, December the 16th, we got married. So this December the 16th, we'll be married 52 years. We were married for about a year. I worked for I was a tool and die maker apprentice during high school. And when we graduated, I continued that job. And I had a draft deferment. because the company I worked for manufactured machine gun wrenches for the M60 machine gun. So there's a good chance of you M60 machine gunners that the wrench you carried was made at the company I worked for. But anyway, being 19 and full of wisdom, I decided I wanted to become a mechanic because I was such a hot rod nut, you know? So I left that job and went to work for Georgia Power Company as a mechanic. Well, it was about a few months later, I got that notice from not the same lady, but her counterpart there in Atlanta, Georgia, that I was getting drafted. So in January, I got my notice. February, I was in Fort Benning going through basic training. And then in, after that I left AIT, I went to AIT at Fort McClellan in Anniston, Alabama. Did my AIT there. They sent me home for 30 days, off to Vietnam. So I got to Vietnam in July of 1969, right after, a month after Gary got there. And I was, of course, the FNG, and all of y'all know what that means, I think. But so FNG's got the great job, usually, of either carrying the M60. I was a little small at that time. I weighed like 120 pounds. So I got the radio. I became the RTO for 3rd Platoon. I don't even remember the guy that gave it to me, but boy was he glad I came into country. So anyway, I did that for a while until John Pugh came into country, and he got the radio, and I became point man because this guy right here, Denny Bush, taught me how to walk point. Well, along the way too, back when I was younger, I was in the Boy Scouts, and I learned how to shoot very, very well. And as a matter of fact, I qualified expert with the M14. So somebody back in headquarters, I think his name was Major Lee, they were looking for a sniper. And so he comes out to the field and picks me up and says, "Hey, you're the new company sniper." So they issued me an M14, Starlight scope, matched ammunition, took me out to the area out where you could zero your weapon out there beside LZ bayonet. And I got to zero my weapon in, sent me out, and they let me get 2 guys, one for an RTO, because we worked away from the company, usually about a click, and another backup guy. So I got, Little Dave was my RTO. Wish he was here. Most of you know Little Dave. And Marty Vaughn, Sergeant Marty Vaughn, was my backup guy. Some of you know Marty Vaughn. I know Denny does. But anyway, did that up until we were told we were given the privilege of moving from our AO down to the peninsula down there where My Lai was. And while we were there in the staging area at LZ Bayonet, since I walked point and another guy, he and I alternated, his name was William Mitchell. We all called him Mitch. Denny knows what I'm talking about. Some of you may have known him. He was a black guy from Memphis, Tennessee, great guy. And so they told us we needed to come over and meet with Lieutenant Hurt. He wanted to go over the map, since we were changing maps. He was going to go over it with us and tell us when the trucks dropped us off down by LZ Dottie, how we were going to take off from there and go on our way. So we went over to there was a fire pit over there where Lieutenant Hurt was at. And we went over there to meet with him, and we're going over the map, and I've got my back to the fire, and something exploded in the fire. Probably somebody threw some C rations in there. We never knew. But anyway, I got hit in my right calf and my left elbow. Had some pretty nice shrapnel hanging out of my arm and my leg. And so next thing I know, I'm on a medevac headed for 91st evac. So that was my last day in the field. I actually recovered from that, and they sent me out. I was sitting on the pad there at LZ Bayonet, ready for the helicopter to pick me up, take me down to meet up with the rest of the guys. And as it turned out, Lieutenant Cooper, who Paul Uncle was really good buddies with, he just happened to be driving by in his Jeep. He was the company XO at that time, and he saw me sitting on the pad, and he asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm waiting for the chopper to take me down with the rest of the guys. He says, hell no, you're not. He says, you're short. He says, you're coming with me. We're gonna find you a job back here in the rear. Sounds good to me. And so he took me into the company office, and he asked Top to find me a job. He says, we need somebody in charge of the drivers of the motor pool. So I was E5 at the time, and so they put me in charge of the drivers of the motor pool. I just happened to have my driver's license with me because I had to get my driver's license to drive in Vietnam, and because I would occasionally have to drive a truck as well. And I got my driver's license, and we would go down to LZ Dottie, pick you guys up, bring you into July for the stand down. And when I left Vietnam in July of '70, I came back, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I didn't want to be a mechanic. Wasn't interested in being a tool and die maker anymore either. And as it ended up, I wound up going to work with Snap-on Tools as an authorized distributor. In other words, I own my own business. And I did very, very well with Snap-on Tools. I was with them for 8 years. 3 years as an independent distributor for them, and 5 years in management with them. They had, I was successful enough that they asked me to come into management with the company. But I soon tired of that, being in management with them because of some changes in the company. And so I left Snap-on, but in the meantime, while I was a field manager with them, I had bought an Apple computer, and I taught myself how to program. And I've always been kind of the geeky type guy anyway, you know, I like gadgets and stuff like that. So I taught myself how to program, and that was in 1981. In 1983, we moved from Johnson City, Tennessee, where Snap-on had me, down to Chattanooga. I opened a business down there with a friend of mine that was also with Snap-on. And I've been in the computer business, computer software business ever since. And that's how I know how to do the website and stuff like that, okay? So basically, that's my story. We have one son, Josh. He'll turn 45. Yeah, he'll turn 45 in December the 20th. And we have no grandchildren. Him and his wife decided they didn't want kids. She's a college professor. And so we have a grand dog. We have she's a golden retriever, beautiful golden retriever. She's still a puppy, and that has been an ordeal, but she's calming down now. And of course, we have our dog, our Cocker Spaniel. That's my story.
Welcome everybody here. My name is Denny Bush. I was born and raised in Detroit. After high school, I played for a company called Burton Title Abstract Company, hockey. We won 3 national championships. And
then I played for the same team, softball team during the summer, and we won 2 national championships. So had a great time. I got to tell you one thing. When I was in 6th grade, I went to parochial school. Being Bush, they put me up front. So there was one nun, Sister Marie Williams. She whacked me with a stick. So I whacked her back. So, and then I called her Sister Funnyface. So obviously I got sent to the Vietnam, yeah, went in service, went to Fort Benning twice. And then I got to go to University of South Vietnam. And there I had met some great people there. Paul, he told me to keep it short, so I got to keep it short.
No.
Yeah, next, And Denny Ash, good people. But everybody here, I love all you guys, really do. And thank God that we're all here, and we'll be back next year. All right, thank you very much, and thank you.
That was a leap of faith, wasn't it?
I'm gonna say something. Can I say something?
Yes, please.
And I met my beautiful wife. I'm Paul Uncle.
Hey, Paul,
Yes.
keep it short.
Well, I got a problem. Jim Glasscock sent me this. He wants me to. Just kidding. Gee, what do I say? Oh, did I ever tell you the joke about the pig? All right. This is a true story. Gail and I were driving through Alabama. I got lost, which is nothing new. So I find this old farmhouse. I pull up, and this farmer walks out and says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm lost. I need directions to town." Well, I'm looking down and I see this pig there. And the family's all around it, and, and I said, "That's a nice looking pig." He said, "Yeah," he says, "that pig is very important to us." He said, "That pig is a hero." I said, "A hero?" He said, "Yeah, the house caught fire, and the pig woke us up and saved my 5 kids and my wife and myself." And I said, that's fantastic. So I'm looking at the pig, and its front leg is missing. And I said, "Did the pig lose the leg in the fire?" And the farmer says, "No, when you have a pig that good, you don't eat him all at once." I cannot believe I got through that without laughing. Never tell that story. Oh boy. You know why I come to these? Because I had 1 year of my life that was a total blur. And with the help of people like Denny and Ash and Scalabini and the lieutenant here, you've kind of put it in perspective, and now I understood what I did for that year. I'm probably one of the few platoon sergeants that had 6 lieutenants. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, you know what, I must have really been a bad lieutenant. One of them shot me, one of them transferred me out of his platoon, and one of them faked a appendicitis. Just kidding, Lynn. Show him your scar, Lynn. Okay, to be serious now. We had some 50-year people. Gail, you and I are like newlyweds. We've been married 45 years. Last month, June, sorry. Is that a new? I'll make this quick. I was drafted when I was 24. I went to Fort Jackson, then to lovely Fort Polk, which Sam and I love. Then I went back to Fort Benning. I went to Shake and Bake School, and then I trained troops. Now I did this, not that I was gung-ho, I was hoping that Nixon was going to end that damn war. Well, you know Nixon, he always lied. So anyway, it never happened. So anyway, I got through that, came home, met Gail at work, we got married. We have one son, 3 granddaughters, so I don't have to worry about them going to war. And that's about it, folks. God bless you all, and God will bless this wonderful country of ours.
My name's Randy Bordner. I got out of high school and started junior college, and I hated it. They talked about art and whatnot, English. It was miserable. And I didn't want to be a painter like my dad was. And I'd always wanted to be a soldier. When I was a little kid, I used to look at encyclopedias and see I had all the ranks and everything memorized. I always wanted to do that. And I wanted to be a real soldier. And I'm driving out to junior college one morning, and it sucked so bad, I said, I'm done. And I turned the wheel of the car and went to the draft board, and I said, draft me. And I was gone in 2 weeks. And I was glad I did. I was glad I did. I went in Vietnam a long time. I got wounded the same day that a lot of the guys in the 2nd Platoon got hurt in August of '70. And one memorable experience is, you know how they tell you that, you know, when a guy gets hurt, you know, tell them how great and wonderful everything's going to be. And they're pulling me off this helicopter at the 91st, and these 2 guys walk by and they look at me and they go, oh my God. I couldn't kill them, but anyway. I spent 6 months in hospitals, ended up in Fort Hood in a military police unit, worked in the headquarters, easy job, really boring. And one morning I woke up, my feet hit the floor, and I said, I'm going to engineering school. And went home and put myself through engineering school. And then I was flying aerobatics and fun stuff, and this young lady come to work at the airport that I was flying out of. And when I was in Vietnam, I think she was a junior high about. But anyway, we got married pretty quick. And it's been 43 some years. We got 3 daughters and 4 grandkids, got 1 coming. And I was working as a structural engineer for a high-rise concrete construction company. We did projects all over the country, and good experience. I thought I'd stay there until I died. And then it just got not good. And my wife just stood behind me 100%. We had, what, $1,000 in our pocket or something, a house payment, 3 kids, and I quit my job, a good paying job, and hurried up and hustled and out of my garage, and we started an engineering company, my own structural engineering firm, carried me. It was quite the experience starting up like that. And we was very fortunate, extremely fortunate. And it's been great. It's been great. I love going to different cities and seeing projects that we've worked on. The Stratosphere Tower in Vegas, I worked on that. That was neat. The Rainbow Bridge up at Niagara Falls. And, a bunch of projects for the Olympics in Atlanta. And high-rises in China and Mexico. I mean, it's been great. It's been great. And I, kind of like some of you guys, I always wondered what happened to everybody. Where'd they go? And forever be grateful for Mr. Baker and Pearl for getting these together and meeting everybody. And even though I didn't serve with hardly any of you, it's just like I really did in a lot of ways. So thank you very much. It's I always look forward to this, and Karen does. And thanks again. Thank you, Lynn and Pearl.
I'm Jerry Wayman. After high school, I couldn't find a good job. There were none in Knoxville. So I decided, well, I'll join the Army. And I did. I was sent to Fort Benning, Georgia. While I was there, I seen these guys jumping out of planes. I said, well, I think I'd like to do that. The good thing about it is, I was scheduled for KP, and that day I had to report to A Company airborne. So I got out of KP. After that, I went to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, as a medic. Took my medical training. They assigned me to New York, and after I was there for about 6 months, they closed the missile silos and asked me where I'd like to go, and I said, well, Italy. So they sent me to Italy for 9 months. After 9 months, I received orders for Vietnam, and it killed me. I said, whoa, leaving this and going to that. And by the way, I was on a place called Lago di Garda, outside of Reno. And we were in charge of all the traveling soldiers and wives and VIP citizens. We used to took care of them on the beach. Well, I get to Vietnam. I was assigned to headquarters company, 1st of the 6th. There they attached me to Delta Company. I do not remember what platoon, but I enjoyed it. That was 68 and 69. I was wounded twice. The second time, I thought, I get to go home. Well, this sergeant major from 1st and 6th came to see me at the 91st, and he said, you're going back to the Battalion 8 station and work for the rest of your time here in Vietnam. I said, well, that's fine. I'm out of the field. Once I was assigned to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, to the 101st Detachment, rear detachment. There was only basic training going on, and the rear detachment's job was, if they got in more than 10 people assigned to the 101st, prepare them and get them to Vietnam as replacements. My wound become infected. So they sent me to medical hold at the hospital. The hospital said, hey, you can work with us. So I worked at the hospital at Fort Campbell, and if anyone was there back in the 60s and 70s, it was 2 stories spread out in old buildings. I was a ward master, 2 different wards. Once the 101st got back, then I got to go do my job with 326 Med. Well, while I was in Med Detachment, 5 of us were discussing the odds of getting a job on the outside or staying in the military. I was always against staying in the military. But for some reason, I let these guys convince me I needed to re-enlist for 4 more years. 21 years later, I retired. I got out. I became the financial director, director of financial development with the Red Cross. I left there and went to an advertising agency where I developed a cable TV infomercial. It was 2 hours long. I produced it for 12 years. I left it. The show went to pot. I don't know why. But I decided to retire, and that's it. Oh, I seen in the magazine. I had seen several times in DAV and VFW, Charlie Company, were unions. Well, after a few years of looking, I seen Gallup Company. So I called in. We set it up. Last year was my first one. This is my second one. And I want to thank you for welcoming me here with such great heroes. Thank you.
Good morning and aloha.
Aloha.
I'm Robert Foy Cook. I'm an East Coast Irish Catholic, so I had to take my middle name as Foy. That's my mother's maiden name. So that's how that is. I'm born and raised in Manhattan, Queens, New York City. Went to school in Queens. Went to college at 17. Got introduced to that fraternity, sorority parties. So I lasted about 8 months in school. And they said, well, you need to take a break and think about it. So, and then, you know, talking with you yesterday in American Airlines, and I worked when I got out of, well, when I got out of school there, I worked for American Airlines when their main headquarters was in the city, down on 3rd Avenue or something. Yeah, in the mailroom. And then from there, one of my buddies talked me into working with the marketing advertising manager for Ideal Toy Company in the city. And so we would just be gophers for him and whatever he needed to be done. He gets to live at the plaza, and but unbelievable. You know, they have what they call a toy fair every year to introduce all the new toys. You know, this is usually like in September, and the security to get in and out of that toy fair was unbelievable because they don't want anybody stealing everybody else's ideas. You know, but. And so I got drafted in, inducted in Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn. They sent me down to Fort Jackson for, what do you call it, introduction or whatever. And then they shipped me down to Fort Gordon, Georgia for basic. And then I went to Fort Sam Houston for the medical training at San Antonio. I really liked it down there. Then I got shipped to Fort Bragg to a medical company that was attached to the 82nd, and then they just farmed us out. Some of us worked in the hospital, some worked in the dispensaries, some worked for the jumps. They would have personnel and heavy equipment drops at the same time, so you saw a whole lot of broken limbs. So I spent 8 months at Bragg, and then I got orders for Vietnam, and I arrived in Vietnam in May of '69, and I left, I think, the last week in April or the first week in May of '70. I ended up initially with the mortar platoon with L.T. Murphy. I think it was called the French Fort area. And then I spent 4.5 months with the mortar platoon, give or take a few weeks. And then I ended up with CP, with Gary. And then because there was quite a loss in medics, so I would bump from one platoon to the other. I even ended up in Echo Company for about 3 weeks. And so I left that in '70. When I got out, I don't remember, it was an employment agency, or was it the VA, or was it, anyway, long story short, there was a retired lieutenant colonel that was a doctor of optometry, and he wanted to hire a vet for becoming a dispensing optician. So that's how I got into the optical game, and then I progressed from there. And then my father was retired from Pan Am, so I could fly anywhere for free. So one of the buddies from the neighborhood says, well, meet me in Hawaii. So I met him in Hawaii. I made 2 phone calls, and they both offered me a job. So I says, well, give me 60 days, I'll be back. And I've been in Honolulu since January of 1973. I've owned my own businesses. I would have doctors of optometry or even retired ophthalmologists that wanted to keep their hand in. They would do the exams, and we would do everything else. We would fabricate glasses, contact lenses. I was fortunate enough that there was 2 guys I hooked up with that were at the forefront of soft lenses, soft contact lenses that were developed in the late '60s, early '70s, and our niche was what we call astigmatic soft lenses to correct for astigmatism. You had to wear a hard lens to be able to correct vision of astigmatism. But we developed the toric soft lens, and we would make those, custom make those for each individual. And we even fitted a horse with soft contact lenses. So that was a great publicity. But anyway, personally, my wife Liko is a kumuhula. You can Google what that means. Very much involved in the Hawaiian culture. We have 3 children. We have 2 grandchildren. I think on the day we get back, we're supposed to have another grandson. So we're looking forward to that. And I can't express well enough that meeting all of you, and this is my first one, it's an experience I'll never forget. Thank you.
My name is Frank Calandrino. I got drafted from the Bronx, 1968. I was 19 years old. Back then, they sent you a little token for the subway because you had no excuse to get down to Whitehall Street in Manhattan. You had car fare. Anyway, I wound up Fort Jackson in South Carolina. I already had my hairdressing license because my father was in that business. And before I got drafted. So in basic training, when we first got there, I got drafted with 2 other guys from my neighborhood in the Bronx. Lieutenant Richards came around and wanted to know what you did in civilian life. So here's this one guy named Clapp. Can you imagine going in the army with the last name Clapp? I dropped out of college. I wanted to be a music professor. Lieutenant Richards is a music professor. Get up here. He starts pulling the hairs out of this guy's chest. So I told my friends, don't you even say I was a hairdresser in civilian life. So when he got to me, I says, I was a butcher. I carried hindquarters on my shoulder. So anyway, Lieutenant Richards, for some reason, was outside of the barracks one night when you weren't supposed to go out. And I said, I'm going to go out there and get a soda for this guy. He was out there with his girlfriend. I went out there with my underwears. Well, he chased my ass up in that barracks. The next day was gas, right? Chlorine gas in the building. Where's my boy, Calandrino? I said, holy shit, man. So this guy, when I went in that gas chamber, right? He puts his face up through the mask like this, and he says, drop and give me 25, right? And pulls the mask off my face. This guy had it in him. I pushed him, I got the hell out of there. Anyway, then he had it in me for another time. I accidentally spit. I was choking on the ground. Drop and give me 25. So in my head I says, Calandrino, Frank, 25 more push-ups, that's going to make you stronger. Okay, anyway. I says, I'm going to prove it. Then he showed the demonstration, he was airborne. So I wanted to go airborne. I wanted to show this guy, I want to go airborne. But my 2 friends talked me out of it. To this day, it bothered me. One went stateside, the other one went to Germany. So anyway, I get to Nam. Cookie was from Queens. We hooked up immediately. I was Bronx, Queens. In the mortar platoon, 68 of October to 69. So when I got out of Nam, in 70, the summer of 70, I met this guy in jiu-jitsu class in the Bronx. He says, you know what I did last weekend? I went and made a jump in the airplane, the parachute. I said, no kidding. I says, I'll go with you next week in New Jersey. He gets sick, and he couldn't go, but I had my cannolis all set up to go. Anybody knows what that means? So I go to Lakewood, New Jersey, take this class to make a jump out of the airplane, $60, right? So how they did this in our class, and there was 19 people, 2 girls. When I found out afterwards, the 2 girls jumped and the 1 guy pumped out. So what they said before he went up in the plane, we need a volunteer to go first, and then we go in alphabetical order. I said, I'll go first. Got up there, 4,000 feet, arched out, bing, nice. Now, I'm going down, right, the chute opens up 6 seconds, whatever. The wind came, bing. I said, I'm going into the Atlantic Ocean over here. Okay, now, I didn't realize they had to redo the plane direction after 4 guys jumped. So now I'm going, and they got a walkie-talkie on you from 4,000 feet. They say, Frank, put your left toggle. Right? And I'm pulling the thing. Meanwhile, there was another guy named Frank. I shut the damn thing off. I says, all right, I'm going to go fly. So I'm going, I see a lake. I says, I'm going to go into this lake. Well, I cleared the lake. The 4th guy went into the lake. The 3rd guy went into a little swampy area. The 2nd guy that was behind me goes into a tree. I'm going over this guy's backyard and I see him barbecuing in the yard, I swear to God. I said the second guy should have went in there, maybe they would have gave him a meal or something. Where do I wind up? Between power lines and a New Jersey turnpike. I thought I was gonna go in some girl's convertible like James Bond, you know? I said, whoa. I said, they had to come get us with a truck. I don't know how the hell they found us. Anyway, that's my airborne experience. I know I should have did it in the Army. Anyhow, I became a hairdresser, day spa owner. I didn't get married until I was 41, until I met my lovely wife, Judy. And I am really glad that I came here. This is like so special. And God bless everybody here. Thank you very much.
My name is Frank Gibbs, for those of you that might not know me. I was born in rural Georgia 73 years ago, and I'm still in rural Georgia. I wouldn't trade it for anything. There's a lot that's transpired in those 73 years. I graduated from high school in '64. I went off to a local rural Georgia middle college and got an associate's degree in engineering. And then I went to another rural Georgia college that was about 100 miles away from my home, and I think that's the furthest I'd ever been away from home. And I graduated with a degree in industrial management and minor in engineering. And when I got out, I could not find a job. You couldn't buy a job in 1968 when I got out of college. And they immediately changed my draft registration from a status from 4A to 1A. And I knew I was going to be drafted. I finally got a job sweeping a floor in a warehouse. And I got tired of that in about a week. And I had a friend that was on the draft board, and he kept telling me, you're going next month. You're going next month. You're going next month. Well, by the end of February, I got tired of that, and I was still sweeping floors. So I went to the local draft board, and the secretary there, I told her, I said, where is my name on the list? And she said, well, you're 7, 8 down. I said, you put my name at the top of the list. I said, I want to go. I said, I'm tired of doing what I'm doing. So they put my name at the top of the list. Next month I was gone. And I went to Fort Benning, basic training. And then I went to Fort Polk and Tigerland, like Sam and some of the others have said. And if the United States has a rectum, that's it. Vietnam was worse. Fort Polk, I'll never forget going to Fort Polk. We rode on the bus from Fort Benning. We got up on an elevated highway. And for miles and miles and miles before we got to Fort Polk, all you could see was swampland on both sides. And so if you went to Fort Polk, you were going to Vietnam. So I said, well, when I get to Vietnam, you know, me having college education, I said, you know, I'll be typing or I'll be behind a desk or something like this, you know, no big deal. Well, it didn't work out that way. When I got to Vietnam, I was placed in Delta Company, and I was in first platoon for about a month. And then they transferred me over to 4th platoon. And that's where I met Bill Dole. And I can't say enough about Bill Dole. Bill and I became the very best of friends. I owe my life to Bill. Bill owes his life to me. You know, all of us know that Bill couldn't make this reunion because his brother died. And Bill emailed me and told me, you know, that he wasn't gonna be able to come because his brother had passed away. For me to pass his love on to everybody. And I'm sure he emailed LD too. And so I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, Bill would certainly love to be here. And Bill has done a lot to help LT and Pearl and the others with putting these reunions together. And I didn't make the first 2, maybe 3 reunions. And Bill hounded me to death. You need to go to the reunion. We need to go to the reunion. The first reunion I came to was in Atlanta, and I didn't come and stay. I came up for a day and went back home. I think I came up for another half day and went back home. It made such an impression on me that I've been to every reunion since, except in 2016. 2016, our daughter had twin boys, and that was in Branson, I believe. And so I didn't make that reunion. Well, after I got home from Vietnam, I went to work in a mining company in a laboratory as a supervisor, and that's where I met my lovely wife. We've been married 43 years, and from there I sort of moved up in the company, and I became the safety director of the mining operation. And we have 2 daughters, both of them are nurses. We have 5 grandchildren. 6? Vietnam messed with all our minds, y'all. We got 5 grandsons and a precious little granddaughter, and she's only about 1 year old. And she's already spoiled, and certainly going to be so as time goes on. But everybody in this room, we're like a band of brothers. You know, it's like family. Just as an example, this might sound stupid to somebody, but it doesn't to me. Laying in bed last night, and the room next door was playing some of the most awful music I've ever heard in my life. You know, we were trying to go to sleep, and they were singing and hollering, beating on the wall, and I don't know what was going on over there, but I was laying there thinking, you know, I'm going to get up and do something. And I thought, you know, if I can't control this, I got a band of brothers that can. So I got up and I beat on the door. You know, there's a door between the rooms. I got up and I beat on the door and I beat on the door. And they quieted down for a while and started beating on the door and beating on the door again, you know. Then finally cut off the music and went to sleep. But, you know, just thinking about thinking, you know, well, I got a band of brothers that can help me if I really need them, you know. It's really been a lot to me, but I'm certainly glad to be here, certainly glad to see all of y'all. I pray for y'all every night. My wife and I have a prayer time every night, and I pray for all of y'all. I pray for all the veterans that are serving this country today. I pray for all their families, and I pray. This country's never been in worse shape than it is right now. Believe me, it's never. You know, we're that far away from a revolution or socialism. Don't know which, but it's coming. And we've had a couple of bumps in the road, my wife and I. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer back in March. I've had radiation, and they've gone in and put the seeds in my prostate. And, I have no more problem. Cancer's gone. Hope it'll be that way. My wife has been diagnosed with ALS, and we started down that road. It's going to be a tough road, but we solicit your prayers as we start down that road. And just thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Well, good afternoon. Ron Hadley here. Boy, tough to follow something like that, Frank. God bless you.
Ron Hadley. I'm originally from Boston, so it's nice seeing some fellow East Coast people here, Frank and Bob and so forth. Grew up in a suburb of Boston, and believe it or not, back in '65, the year I graduated from high school, I was fortunate enough to be like an all-state champ in track, and it kind of opened up doors for me to go anywhere I wanted, and I wanted out of Boston. I was just, much as we love New England, but my track coach was an All-American at Notre Dame, and he said, "Hey Ron, there's a funny town called Kalamazoo out in Michigan, but Western Michigan University was the NCAA champs in track." So I ventured out this far west to Western Michigan to run track. And, I should mention my wife Jerry right off the bat back there. Sometimes, yeah. I would tell you about Jerry that if anyone speaks anything different than Michigan, you all have an accent. She'll be the first to tell you that. I hear it every day. My Bostonian part of me is 55 years old, so there's some hanging in there. So it was a pleasure talking to Frank and Bob and hearing some more Bronx talk. So I tried running track at Weston, and here I blew in thinking I was a hot shot, all-state champ. And let me tell you what, all I did was suck dust the whole time I was there, because they had the nation's best. So then after coming down off my high mountain thinking I was great, I followed the same track that I said, well, then I'll join fraternity. And that'll be a lot of fun and still be involved. I followed the same course that Bob said, that after a semester at the fraternity, they said, well, Ron, you should go home and think about it also. And the way things were going back then, that gave me about 4 months of freedom before, as many of us, and I got caught up in the draft. And so September of '68, and I got drafted, went down to Fort Jackson also, and then down at Fort Jackson, I went through all that basic introduction training that we all had, tests or whatever. And during that time there, I got called out in the middle of the night with 3 or 4 other guys. Okay, this is even before basic training. They put us across the post, and they said to us that we had scored so high in the tests that we qualified for Warrant Officer Flight School. I figured, well, and again, we'd all been, all through the '60s, I think all of us knew about Vietnam and all this stuff was going on. So it sounded, I don't know, I was ignorant, I didn't know what. They gave us a wonderful PR flick and told us, they showed us going to Texas for the egg beater, and then going over to Fort Rucker, Alabama for the Hueys, and so forth, so on. So we're all sitting around listening, and then they ended up saying, being honest, they said, now if you're a 2-year draftee, just sign up for 4 more, and make it 6, and then off you go. But when they said, the difference is, if you go to NAM as a warrant officer, you're not guaranteed a 1-year tour. So with that, you had 30 seconds to make up your mind what to do. And I think the majority of us got up and said, well, if they want us to be a warrant officer flight, if we qualify that good, I must be golden for something, some other MOS. So I left, and I think the majority of us did. So at the end of basic training, I'm sitting there as they're dishing out the MOSs, and I'm sitting like a fat cat like I did in high school as a track star, thinking I have it made. And when I heard 11 Bravo drop, it's like I felt my life go in front of me. It was one of my more interesting moments of my thinking. I got over to Nam, and unlike bless your hearts, those that are honorably wearing their Purple Hearts, I didn't have to come home with a Purple Heart. I just got a lot of jungle rot junk on my hands 3 or 4 different times. But I did have, we all had experiences over there, one way or another. And in a way, I did actually have 3 moments in my life that kind of flash in front of me without saying I have a Purple Heart. 3 or 4 of us came in off the UE into LZ Bayonet, and Don Hilton was our M79 guy. So we were all standing, we came off the helipad on LZ Bayonet, and the 3 or 4 of us were standing around in a little cluster group, you know. And come to find out, as we were talking, Hilton, our M79 guy, was holding it, and then as we were laughing about a joke, he pulled the trigger, bam! M79 HEs right in front of us. And you can imagine we all, our breath froze, and we all kind of did the old backup trip. Come to find out what it was, at the time, you know, the M79s, the old ones in the back of the, they go off as soon as they hit anything. But the Army was in the process of they had redesigned them so that they have to go so far before they go off. And Hilton must have had one of those, which I don't know how you want to look at that, but that was one of those life-changing moments that they say. And so no Purple Heart involved there. The next month, I was right there at the time that we went back for a 3-day stand down. And we're back there, and I remember going out, and I can't swim a lick. My wife, Jerry, is like a fish, but I'm more like a rock. And went out on our air mattresses, and the big waves were coming in, and as I was coming in, big wave broke over me, the air mattress goes, I'm a rag doll in the ocean. So then I come out of the water, and I tried pulling a Johnny Weissmuller. I got about 10 yards, and I'm exhausted. And just then another wave came over me, and I'm a rag doll, and when I came up, I'm thinking, this is it. I'm not sure how they're going to write my obit in Vietnam, but drowning at a stand down is not going to be. Well, Louis Luttrell, our squad leader, was out there, and bless his heart, I mean, just by the luck of whatever, you can't aim these things, but he came up, I grabbed on for, my fingernails almost went through his air mattress, dragged me into, I said, well, that was another time I was thinking about everything in life. The third time, the day that we left, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but in the day about the time we were there, when we were leaving out of the company to head over to the airport, they gave us smoke. And the idea was, as you're going down, we were popping colorful smoke in headquarters and driving out. So I got my smoke. They all said goodbye to me. So we're going down the center of LZ Bayonet, and I'm popping smoke, okay? I remember throwing a nice big bright yellow one just when the sergeant major came out of the office. Buried him in yellow smoke. Got to the gate, and he said, Sergeant Hadley, you want it back. Take me back. It was a black, I don't know his name, he was a black sergeant major. And let me tell you right now, regardless of what we had all been through for the year, I saw my life go in front of me a third time. Because I believed him when he said he was going to keep my butt in Nam for another who knows how long. He dressed me down like I hadn't been dressed down in my whole life. So I said, well, anyway, so then he finally said, get your butt out of here. And those were my 3 lousy times that I really, really felt bad about. Got back to the States, finally got out. Then I ended up working for a company called Steelcase in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I ended up as a senior industrial engineer, about 33 years there. Got let go. And then a company called Wolverine Worldwide picked me up, and I did the same job for them for another 5 years. And then they let me go on getting caught up in downsizing, and I was able to just kind of call it a day. So between us, between Jerry and I, we have 5 kids, 13 grandkids, and so we're very blessed in that regard. All of us have associations with groups, and college or high school, whatever it is, and we have get-togethers. I think all of us feel that this is the one reunion that means the most endears to our hearts for the rest of our lives. and speaking and talking to all of us with all the laughter we have and all the fun we're having. It's certainly it's always a memorable time, and God bless you all.
Thanks for the coffee, but anyway. My name's Jeff Keyworth, and unlike what Tom Selleck says in his commercial about this not being his first rodeo, this is my first rodeo. and I couldn't be more happy to be here, and I can't tell you what a good time Kathy and I have both had in the few days that we've been here with all of you. I worried that I wouldn't fit in. I worried that, like everybody does, Leonard has unfailingly worked on me every year consistently, and I bless him for it, because it's been a tremendous experience. And each one of you, most of you, if not all of you, I don't think I met before this get-together, before this reunion. People I hoped would be here from my time of service, at least, and even better if there was from my platoon. For one reason or another, couldn't make it. But I feel like already in these several days that I've gotten to know all of you really well, and I'm going to make it a point not to miss another one. My career started out, I was born in Minnesota and raised in Southern California, and all I ever wanted to do was become a police officer. I guess it's a little kid's dream, and I just never got rid of it. And so after high school, I signed up to go to a junior college and take police science at 18 and a half years of age, something like that. I was completing, while I was doing that, Brea Police Department came out with a program for people who were interested in becoming a police officer. And it was a part-time job in a non-sworn position. They called it a cadet position, and it was to learn the job, basically from the inside out. And so I applied for that and was successful in becoming they're actually their first police cadet in that program. And so for the next 2 years while I went to community college, I worked there part-time, and that was a great help to my parents. They helped me with community college, but the only thing I could provide in the meantime was odd jobs while I was going to community college. You know, I cleaned classrooms, and I worked in gas stations, pumping gas and changing oil and things like that. So this was a real step up for me. Not only was I getting a much better job, but I was in a career now that I wanted to stay in. And so I unfortunately could not complete community college. I completed community college for the degree, an AA degree, but I completed it about 4 months before I turned 21. And so the police department could not hire me full-time until I turned 21. The government, however, was counting the months better than I was. And at the end of community college, so ended my deferment. I don't think it was 2 weeks after that I got my draft notice. And I went and informed the police chief I was working with, you know, that my career was going to have to be put on hold. And he said, well, not so fast. He said, we've got a city council member who's on the draft board at the county level. And he said, I'm calling him. And he did. And he said, I've got a young man here, and told him about how long I'd been there and my degree and things. And he said, I'm set to hire him in 2 months when he becomes 21 years of age. And he said, I don't want him going in the service. Is there something you can do about it? Because I want him as a police officer now. And the councilman from our city who was on the draft board said, I totally understand that, Chief, and I'm sure he's going to make a great police officer, and as soon as he completes his military career, you can have him. So that was the end of that. And I went to Delta Company after basic. I went to AIT. I went to Delta Company, 1st to 6th, 2nd platoon. and where I was started off as a rifleman, and later was assigned to point man with a new to our platoon, the over and under. And that was my assignment for the rest of the time in the field. I had a great deal of luck walking point. My lieutenant consistently advised me to quit taking the easy way, whether it was through breaks in hedgerows or paths or openings that was not a smart thing to do. And so that was one big advantage. And then the man who walked second for me, who I tried to get to come this year, he's never been either. His name is David Sweeney, and he lives in Pennsylvania. Excuse me. Dave and I were very good friends. He's my best friend while I was in Delta Company. And he walked second for me for 6 months. I didn't have a point every day for 6 months. It alternated with the other squad each day. But the point of that is that he was resolute in being my eyes forward. And on one particular occasion, stopped me from walking up on top of a VC. I was, for once I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and I was keeping my face on the ground rather than looking elsewhere. And I didn't see him. And the only thing I remember was him grabbing my shoulder without saying anything, his hand coming alongside my face like this, and my head came up, and through the trees in front of me, the bushes in front of me, there's the back of a VC with his AK sitting next to him and his straw hat all facing to our back. And I'm going to go to the side, and the M60 gunner came up there and solved the problem. But there was things like that, and another lucky break I got from our Vietnamese interpreter who stopped me from cutting through a hedgerow, where it was a rather tall hedgerow. And for once I wasn't taking the easy way through, I was using the machete. And I didn't see the tripwire running across the top of the hedgerow. And our Vietnamese interpreter literally grabbed me by that right arm, and said, in what was his best attempt at English, he couldn't pronounce Keyworth, but Keywork came out as close, and cut, Keywork, cut, and he's pointing like this, and I'm looking up, and you could see what he meant. Anyway, that was a bit of a synopsis of my career in Vietnam, and when I returned home, the police chief made good his promise. And the day I came back to Brea, I remembered his promise, of course. I was holding on to that for those 2 years, and I went back to him, and I reported into the police department. I'm thinking, I hope he remembers, And he said, he greeted me like a long-lost relative. He says, "I'm so glad you're back." He said, "When can you go to work?" I said, "Go to work now. I'm done." He says, "Fine, be here at midnight tonight." And he says, you're going to start on watch 1 at midnight tonight. And he tells his secretary, "Take him down to City Hall and have him sworn in. I'll call the city manager and tell him you're coming." Here's part of his side of the conversation with the city manager, who says, he must have said something to the effect of, "Isn't this rather sudden?" And he said, "No, I've been waiting for him for 2 years." So I had a break there like nobody else has had. I was a police officer for quite a few years when Brea established a traffic division. And all my life I've loved to ride motorcycles. And so I ended up heading up that traffic division and being promoted to sergeant later on. So literally I was, eventually either a sergeant in the Army or a sergeant in the police department. Seemed to work for me. One of the highlights of that was that the traffic unit, because we incorporated another city who didn't have their own police department, So we were actually a police department for 2 Orange County cities, Brea and Yorba Linda. And as some of you might know, Yorba Linda is where the presidential library is for President Nixon. So when they built that library, they got to the point where the dedication was going to be taking place. And even in the steps leading up to the dedication, the groundbreaking, I think was when President Nixon made his first visit out there. And I got informed just at the last minute that he's coming by way of helicopter, and then he's going to land at the junior high school, and then you guys are going to be his escort over to the library. Okay, great. So we did that, and all he had with him was a driver, and there was a black limo waiting for him at the junior high school. So we were there when it landed. They got into the limo, and we had a motorcycle escort of probably about 14 guys over to the library. And we basically just we were his exterior security, if you will, blocked intersections and so that nobody got too close to the limo. Nobody, I don't think, was aware at that time that he was going to be there for this dedication. At least it was known in the city there, but it wasn't widespread. So we got over there, and he did the groundbreaking ceremony, and then we escorted him back to pick up his helicopter at this junior high school. We get there, and the driver, before we got there, the driver had said to me, he said, President Nixon, he said, was very impressed with your police escort. He said to tell you that in Europe, a rank or I'm trying to say, quality of a diplomat was, pardon me?
Status.
Thank you. My better half can help me out here on some of this. The status of a diplomat was determined by the number of police motorcycles that he had in the escort. So he said he was literally counting your motorcycles. And he said you had 14. And I said, really? And I said, I'm flattered. And he said, so he'd like to meet you. And so he said, well, if you guys wouldn't mind lining up here, he said, when we bring him back, if you line up, by his helicopter there, he wanted to come by and meet each one of you. And darn if he didn't. We lined up there, and he got out of the limo and went to each officer, thanked them, shook their hand individually, and got into the helicopter and took off. Well, that was the first of several visits, because over the time that he was president, the library got built, his wife died, they had the initial dedication, his wife died, there was a couple other big deals for him to come out there. And so we became his unofficial, official escort. I came to find out from his driver later, who was private security and former Secret Service, that President Nixon had refused all forms of Secret Service protection when he left office. Excuse me. He was, yes, I got a bad he literally was embarrassed by the way he left office, and thought that it was not right for him to take Secret Service protection. So he hired this driver that he had was former Secret Service who worked for him now, was paid by him, and he had similar security that he paid for himself at his ranch in San Clemente, California. So we were even more stressed to make sure, because we didn't, up until that point, we really didn't, we had no idea, and I don't think most other people did either. So that was a very highlight of my career. The bigger than that, however, was the opening of the library, when it was the first time that I think anywhere that five former presidents had all been at one spot, and for that dedication. And that was such a big deal that we couldn't, it was beyond our capabilities of handling all of it, despite, with, I think it was, when that was dedicated, it was Ronald Reagan, I think was the city president. At any rate, so there was presidential security, Secret Service. I mean, they had, because he was going to be there, they had all the exterior screening booths and everything. You couldn't get near the library unless you know, hand screened by these guys and inside and outside. But we had all the exterior and all the roads around there, so far more than we could handle. So we enlisted the aid of our neighboring cities and their traffic divisions. And so at 4 a.m. that morning, you know, 8 hours before this was about to take place, I did a briefing for 4 other police departments and the Orange County Sheriff's Office in our city council auditorium. And had more motors and cops than I'd ever seen in my life in one room. The good news is everything went off obviously fine, and it was a great event, a great testament to 5 presidents there for one ordeal. I was very honored to be part of that. I had a great career. I met my wife, Kathy, during my career, and we've been together now for 25 years, about 35 that I've known her, and we have grandchildren together, grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren. And another advantage I got out of all this was that prior to that, I had only 2 sons. I always wanted a daughter, struck out both times. You know, so this time I've got daughters and granddaughters and now great-granddaughters. So I feel, and don't you know who gets all the attention? I'm treated like somebody. As far as the reunion goes, I wish I'd done this sooner. Lynn told me I'd feel that way. I thank him over and over again for not giving up on me. I've always been in communication with him over emails, and I knew he was going to be right. You know, I just had to overcome my own problems with getting together, my old fears that, you know, I wouldn't fit in, you know, or I don't know, whatever else I might have been thinking. This has been a great experience. I can't wait for the next one. And I enjoyed meeting every one of you. And for those of you I talked to about other people that you do know, like Terry Andreessen, many of you know him or knew him. I will see him in person when I get home and try and convey to him. Again, I tried to get him to come this year. Terry's, as I've told some of you, is not in great shape. He's been suffering with effects of Agent Orange contamination for a long time. Been on treatment for a long time, and has been, up until recently, has been real successful in keeping it at bay. Lately, it's taken another step, I guess, and he's lost his hair. And most of you who knew him knew his nickname is Swede. Big, strong guy, and he still is. Big guy, great personality. If I'm not going too long, I'll give you a quick blow-by-blow of when I first met him. My neighbor told me that, hey, you might want to go into the Ford. I was looking to get a new car. And he says, you might want to check the Ford dealer in Libby, about 12 miles away. He said, he served in Vietnam. I said, really? And he says, yeah, and I think he was with the 1st to the 6th. I said, oh, wow. All my time in California, all those years, I never met anybody that served anywhere near the unit that I'd been in. So I went in there, and I walked in, and I had this California pickup truck, you know, smog system, 2-wheel drive, totally useless in Montana. And so I had to get a 4-wheel drive truck. I went into Libby, told the salesman, I said, I understand your boss here served in Vietnam. And I said, well, so did I. And he goes, really? I said, yeah. He says, you better come with me, you know. So he takes me into his office, and I told a couple of people here this story already. So I look at Terry, and he says, gentleman here says he served in Vietnam. We exchanged preliminary things about what unit you were in. And I said, it's in the 1st to the 6th, the Marical Division. Terry says, I was in the 1st to the 6th, the Marical Division. I was in the, she said, I was in the Company D, 2nd Platoon. And I said, I was in Company D, 2nd Platoon. And he says, the salesman, he says, sit down. The salesman looks at Kathy and he says, you better come with me, they're going to be a while. Terry's a great guy, a great guy. Since then, I know of one other personal story about him. One of the guys returning, a veteran returning from Iraq, was seriously injured, especially in his legs and one arm, one leg, at least in one leg and one arm. I found out by accident. Terry had seen to it that he could drive himself. Terry had a Ford modified for him so that he could drive.
Oh,
Excuse me. A great guy. So I tried again before this one to get him to come. He didn't want to, and I didn't press it. So I'll certainly go back and I'll reinforce and tell him again. Well, they don't tell Terry. I'll talk to him again about it, and hopefully next time maybe it'll be different. Anyway, I couldn't be happier to be here, and thank you all very much.
Hi, I'm Steve Ferguson. I'm from Fort Collins, Colorado. Fort Collins is not a military base, in case anybody was wondering. Got decommissioned in the 1860s. My military career is a little bit different than some people. When I went to college, I joined Air Force ROTC, so I was in the Air Force for a couple of years. At the end of 2 years, you have to make some pretty big decisions in the ROTC program. I chose to get out for whatever reason. So that was the end of my military career, almost. 3 years later, when I was finishing up with college, I got my notice like the rest of you. I got shipped off to Fort Campbell for a while, then I went to Tigerland, like a lot of guys, I guess. And we all know what that means. Vietnam's next. I was trying to think of the high point of my Vietnam duty. I decided what it was is I was one of the co-stars in Lynn's all-male review in the bomb crater.
Oh, yes.
Anybody seen the all-male nude review in the bomb crater? I'm the one that's the best looking. Anyway, after that, I got back to the States, got sent back to Tigerland. Somehow it worked out because I got a couple of short leaves. I had over 6 months left, so they sent me to drill sergeant school. So I got to go to drill sergeant school, and then I was in a basic training unit down there for 4 cycles, then I got out. I came back to Fort Collins, didn't have much to do, so worked a little bit of construction for a while. Then I met my wife, Ann, who we ultimately had 3 daughters with, which seemed to be seemed like a lot of guys had 3 daughters. I don't know, there was something in the water in Vietnam. Anyway, we had 3 daughters. Haven't been lucky enough to get any sons-in-laws or grandkids, so it's just the 3 daughters. About the time I got married, I decided it was time to finish college, because even though I'd been for 6 years, I'd never finished. Finished my degree in construction management. My career must have paralleled Gary's a little bit, because I was in construction for 40 years, owned my own company for most of that time, but I also worked for other companies at the same time. That's pretty much it. Retired 5 or 6 years ago. Enjoyed coming to these. Nice to see you guys every year. Good luck. We'll see you next year.
Good morning, everyone. I want to say to the committee, to the Stovall's, the Bakers, the Ashes, the Salpinis for a great, great thing you put together here for all of us. This year I brought my niece, Sharon. And with that, I'm going to proxy the rest of my time to Sam Maggio. Or, no, I'm kidding. I was going to give you my time to speak so you can do some impersonations, but I graduated from high school in 1967. Enrolled in a local university there that fall. Went for a few weeks, didn't work out so good. Decided college wasn't for me, so I started working full-time at the Coca-Cola bottling company in Jefferson City. In October of '68, my best friend got his draft notice. And he said, why don't you just come with me? So it was one of those Forrest Gump moments. I said, okay. So like many of you, I went down the draft board, and her name was Marion Bledsoe. I remember her name. I said, my buddy's going, he's going in February of '69. Can you work me in? And of course, she said, that's really not going to be too big of a problem. We have 4 children, Sharon and I. They're all beautiful kids. They have great hearts. 2 of them are in St. Louis, a son and a daughter. They each have 2 children. We have a son and his wife in Kansas City. They have triplets.
Oh, wow.
And we have a son in Chicago. He's not married. But we live right in the middle of Missouri. St. Louis on the east side of the state, Kansas City on the west side of the state. So we spend a lot of time on Interstate 70 babysitting. So, went to Fort Wood, did basic down there, and from there went down to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, much just like Jerry did. Went through that training, pulling lanyards on 105s and 55s. Got orders for Vietnam. Thought, well, you know, not the best place to go, but at least I'll be on a hill somewhere shooting artillery. I won't be down there with those 4 grunts, man. So anyway, after we land, made my way up to Bayonet, and there was probably 18, 20 of us artillery guys there at Bayonet. They called out 5, 6 names. I happened to be one of them. And like Jerry said, you guys are going to be part of field forces. Didn't have a clue what that was. But that afternoon, I was on a helicopter headed out west for Charlie Company. That was my first assignment. Got off the chopper, and the red leg RTO saw me coming and had me on the radio immediately. So I was RTO for Charlie Company for 4 months, did a brief stint with Bravo Company for 2 months, then wound up as the FO, just like Jerry, for Delta Company for November and December. I got a job at FDC later on, and went back home, had a pocket full of money, figured I wouldn't have to work for several months. Well, in 2 weeks, you know, I'd blown all that money. Got a job at the state legislature, as low job as you can get. Wound up spending 30 years there. Retired from state government. Met my wife Sharon on the baseball field. I was coaching girls fast pitch softball. She showed up one day, and she became an instant star, don't you know? Anyway, I want to thank everyone. It's great therapy, just great therapy, visiting with each and every one of you. Glenn, you got this thing started, so very grateful for you, and thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charles Dupuy from Houston, Texas. I was born very close to Houston, a little town, but my dad worked as a seismograph chief for an oil company, and so by the time I finished high school, we moved like 23, 24 times, and ended up back in Houston. And went to University of Texas. After I flunked out twice, I volunteered for the draft. Before I know it, I'm in July, and I went with Delta Company when my first day in the field was when they moved to their new AO on the south. And so I got my combat infantry badge my first day in the field, and said, whoa. And basically, carried an M79 for a little bit, and then somehow carried a radio, was an RTO, and I was talking to Michael Schwartz, and I probably took over company RTO from him when he went up to Da Nang. And then, strangely enough, I got sent to Brigade RTO. And once I got back in Brigade, in the bunkers in July, realized that was pretty safe, so I extended in Vietnam to get an early out to go back to school. The day after I left Vietnam, I was out of the Army, and I went back to school, did better this time, got my degree, got an MBA, and went back, finally got a job in Houston, computer programming, and have been doing that until early last year when I retired, and so now I just don't do anything. Which is good. And this is my 5th reunion, and everyone has been really great. And 50 years ago, I was with a great bunch of people, and they still are. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, I'm standing up. I get that a lot. My little spiel is going to be a little fragmented because I have no concept of time so much in Vietnam. I have to find someone's book so I can get the dates. And top it off, I have an IQ between a radish and a turnip. So that doesn't help me any at all. My first memories in life was at a place called Leesville. Those of you that were at Fort Polk, we called it Diseaseville. Remember? My dad was a military guy. He was a lifer. He was World War II and Korean. And he was going to make it life, but he had children to come along, and he got out. He didn't talk much about where he was or what he did. He was Saipan, Tinian, Guam, Army Air Corps. And the only thing that I knew about him was from one of his buddies. He received a bronze medal for, he led the disarmament of the Enola Gay. He was an armament specialist, and he led the team that removed all the heavy stuff from the Enola Gay. So, you know, I was very, very proud of him. I graduated in '64, went to college. I was a professional student. I loved going to college. I loved to learn. And I got a minor in everything. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I got a degree in biology. Left college in May and reported in June, on June 17th. So our draft board was very quick. I was waiting for Lynn to say something about, he was talking about everyone that has so many years. I was sitting over there hoping that he'd ask about those of us that had 2 years. Okay? We were draftees. But I had no concern. I had, went to college. I felt like I'd probably get a job as a clerk or one of those things. Went to Fort Bliss. We took all that battery of tests that all of us had to take. They came out to some of us and put a little tag on our shirt that says OCS. And then we went to this one building where many of our buddies, there were 35 of us that got drafted from Floyd County in that month. Excuse me. And some of our buddies were over here, and a couple of us were over here. We had our ODS, OCS tag, but we had already figured out they're going to want us to re-up. They're going to want us for 6 years. We just flipped this thing on, wadded it up, and we scooted over in the other line. We didn't want to spend that 4 years, so I had 2 years. I flew out of Anchorage. I flew out of Washington, Fort Lewis, and went to Anchorage, Alaska, where we got snowbound on Thanksgiving Day, 1967. They took us down, put us into a hotel, and I looked out the window and I sang the little song. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Because we were on the clock for our year. Greatest hospitality, though, out of the Alaskan people. They came down to pick us up and take us to their homes for Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh.
When I got to Vietnam, I was in Echo Company. It was in December of ¡67, Echo Company. And we were Echo Company until, I think, February, when Echo Company was disbanded, and then we went to Delta Company. I was in 2nd Platoon in Delta Company. And then after I hit the E5, well, I got transferred over to my flamboyant platoon leader, Larry Stovall. And I met Larry and I met Brian, and to be honest with you, those two guys are the reason that I'm here today, because they kept bugging me. I had my first reunion in Nashville 5 years ago. Some of the things that I have to, one of the things that I told Larry, and I had told my wife whenever we were going down, if I go to this reunion and it consists of a bunch of drunks that are telling blood and gut stories, I'll walk out. Because that wasn't what I wanted. This group here is a fantastic group. It didn't happen in Nashville, and it hasn't happened here, and I appreciate it. You guys are just a fantastic bunch of guys, because some of us know what you've gone through. I can recall one of the new guys coming in. I think this was when I was in the 2nd platoon, and he was a Rambo. We were going through a village one day, and I watched from afar him pull a pin on a grenade, toss it in the doorway of a grass hooch, and turn around and backed up against the grass hooch. When all the shrapnel went through that grass hooch into his back, he learned his lesson. I think that he stayed out of the field for about a month, and that was it. And we saw him back, and he was a different person for some odd reason. In the hedgerows, I don't know whether some of my interpretation may be not totally accurate. Fact is, I think the children would call Larry Kiwi. Was that not the Vietnamese? Okay, Vietnamese for lieutenant. Okay, we'd go through a village, and we're told not to go through the hedgerow. But if you remember, some of the mamazans would sit around a crock and they would chew, I don't know what it was, some kind of a green leaf, and they would spit into this thing. Then they would cover it up with a piece of plastic and put on top of that a clay lid, and they would bury it. And it was buried in a hedgerow. I was walking through, and I went through the hedgerow. And I went straight through where that pot was fermenting. And I walked like this, with my head turned around for days until that stench got off of my legs. You know, we were supposed to stay a distance apart. Well, I didn't have any problems. The guys stayed away from me. I stank horribly. I saved my R&R until August because I wanted to be a little short. Not only that, but I was still single, and I wanted to go to Australia, to the beaches, see the girls in bikinis. Most of us ground pounders were sex starved. We wanted to see a pretty girl. I went in August. It's winter time in Australia. One would have thought someone with a science degree would know. And I had a minor in astronomy, you know, so tilt of the earth. Froze half to death, but I stayed on King's Cross. Who was it that went to Australia? King's Cross is where they put us up. I stayed there most of the time indoors because I'd gone with my short sleeves. I was called out of the field to go on R&R, and I went straight into, I think it was bayonet or gator, I can't recall. And Top had my uniform all ready for me. I took that uniform, they got me in a Jeep, and I went to the airport there in July. The C-130 that was supposed to take us to Da Nang had been diverted. So I couldn't catch a flight. I hung my uniform up, and I sat outside watching the Phantoms with their afterburners all night long. I really enjoyed it. Then I started checking with choppers that came in. Which way are you going? We're going north. We're going to the... You got room? And I hopped on choppers. And I went through 3 choppers before I got to Da Nang. Got to Da Nang. My uniform was back in July. I told you an IQ between radish and a turnip. So I took off down in Da Nang. There wasn't an Army PX. And I went to Navy, whatever they call it, and I bought me a pair of Navy officers' pants. They didn't have a shirt. So we went to the Marines, and I bought a Marine shirt. Everything was fine. We got in line before we hitched a ride to Sydney, and here I am. I have my Army shoes, my Navy pants, Marine shirt, Army belt, and my little cap, the Army cap. And I'm standing there in line. Hope nobody notices. Wasn't funny then. Peripheral vision was good, and I see these feet, spit-shine shoes come up and turned toward me. I hear a voice that says, "What branch of the Army are you in?" No, he said, "What branch of the military?" I'm sorry, "What branch of the military are you in?" And I turned and looked, and it was a Marine captain standing there. I said, "Army, sir." And he looked me up and down, and he said, "Well, that GD explains all of it." I got out of Vietnam, luckily, and I didn't get a scrape. That kind of sitting right over there is one of the reasons. When he came in, he called us squad leaders up, and he said I would just be naive if I were to think that I know everything there is to know. And I'm going to learn some things from you guys, and you're going to help me. And I don't think there were too many other butter bars that came in that were like that. I appreciate it. And this guy here also, Brian. Went back home. What do I do with myself? Well, I have a GI Bill. I can go back to college. I like that. I had discovered that I really liked chemistry, so I went back to OU and got my master's in chemistry. Now, what am I going to do with myself? And one of my advisors dropped my name with a guy that was a superintendent of schools. And he called me and said, "Would you like to come and teach science?" Okay, I didn't have anything else to do. So I taught high school for about 12 years. Taught at Tulsa Junior College for 2. Then I was approached and hired out of there to set bio and chem testing labs up for a specialty needle manufacturing company with Baxter. Stayed there for 10 years, and that lost its luster. I didn't have such a colorful life as over here. Oh, Sam. As Sam. And I was contacted by Boston Scientific. Someone else who was from Boston, out of Watertown. Okay. So I spent 10 years with Boston Scientific. My parents were getting elderly, and my mother had Alzheimer's. And I made the conscious decision to leave that and to go back to Oklahoma and to help my parents. And I don't regret it at all. The money was not there, but hey, nothing like family. And like this, hey, we're family. And I appreciate it. I think that I could call any of you anytime if I needed something, and I could get that help. So I appreciate you all, love you all, and hey, hopefully next year will be my 3rd. Okay? Appreciate all the work that you guys, Cash and you and who else? Oh, and Kiwi back there. Okay? All right, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
One more second. We got something that we may not say.
The reason we're all here having fun, you know, it's not by accident or something. It's because of Lynn, Pearl, Gary and his wife, and Chris and his wife. You know, and you don't put this together like real easy. And I want to thank them for doing this. I keep telling people if I was doing this, we'd be at the Motel 6, and we'd be eating at the Taco Bell. So this is what's the difference between D Company and my other company, C Company, because they don't do squat. You know, and I also want to thank all the wives because you gotta put up with us guys. And every time I do my Ralph Cramden impersonation, my wife knows that in 5 minutes, you know, things will be back to normal. And all of you women should have like little Supergirl outfits, you know. And this is the best group. Hope to see all you new guys again next year. And, you know, I think I smell in food, so it's probably time to quit. So, also, Grover Cash has got stage 4 cancer. So if anybody knows any way to get a hold of him, he's on Facebook. You can message him. But we missed him this year too. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Speaking of Grover, Pearl and I are planning on the way back to Arkansas is trying catch Grover. Let me check on Chow, and we'll take a break and have lunch. Wait a minute, I got noon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is lunch here?
Did they pop in? Yeah, it's here. Did they pop through the door by any chance? Okay, let me run out there and find out what it is. We'll just take a little break right now.